Good morning. In case you hadn't already figured out, I'm an American, and I'm going to be speaking in English, so I apologize in advance for those of you that have trouble with it, but I will do my best to try and communicate a number of things that I think are very important that have happened in the US market that could potentially happen here. And the way I want to tell this story is to start by talking about a few things that have happened in the past. People used to believe that the world was flat, and then somebody built a better boat, and a bunch of very brave people got on that boat and sailed around the world. And when they were done, nobody believed the world was flat anymore. Years later, a man imagined that the earth was at the center of the universe, and nobody believed him. And then somebody built a more powerful lens, and he proved it was true. Technology, combined with belief, has fundamentally, since the dawn of time, been able to change perception. Corporations have always had the best technology. In 2007, a man named Steve Jobs in Cupertino, California, reimagined the way the world would work. And for the first time, technology for consumers was better than technology for the corporations. IT departments and companies in America were unprepared for the iPhone. Now imagine what that means for consumer perception. How will that change the way people behave in the future? And what I see in America is there are two trends, two forces that are shaping our industry. The first is speed, and the second is convenience. For those of you who are Le Mans fans, I'm going to guess there's some in the room, this is the R18 Audi e-tron Quattro. It's the world's fastest car. The 24-hour Le Mans race has always been about two things, speed and endurance. To win the race, it's not enough to just be the fastest. You have to stay on the track the longest and stop the fewest times, which means you have to optimize for three things: fuel, tires, and brakes. One man and technology reimagined the race. This is the first car to ever enter the Le Mans 24-hour race that is a hybrid vehicle. It stops far more often than the other cars on the track, but it's also far faster. And now every other competitive team in the race is using hybrid technology. This is a man who reimagined the way the race could be run, and everybody followed. Technology and imagination galvanizing a race. Does anybody know what this is? No, that's okay. In America, they're very popular. There are actually 10 million thermostats sold in the United States every year at an average price point of $9. This is a $250 thermostat. What does it do? It's the first learning thermostat. It's programmable. It learns from you. You don't actually have to touch it. That's its only benefit. You use your phone from anywhere in the world to change it, and the more you change it, the more it learns, the more money you save. That is worth 25 times what the average consumer will pay for a thermostat. Convenience. That's what people want. It's crazy. Americans. Either way, the important thing to recognize is that the Nest saves $20 million. It's only been in the market for 2 years, but so far they estimate they've saved $29 million for consumers in energy costs. This pays for itself. Convenience. People want convenience. No one will know what this is, but this is a popular place in the United States to go on vacation. Can't imagine why, right? Look at this. It's in Michigan, in the state of Michigan, and it's called Sleeping Bear Sand Dunes. And adults look at this picture and they see a challenge or an obstacle to overcome. But a child looks at this and imagines the pure joy of running down the hill. And the incredible thing is, if you want to connect with consumers in the future as an insurance company, you will have to imagine the world as a child. It's not about a race to the bottom. It's about the joy in getting there. So I want to talk about the 1% of people in America. 1% of new drivers every year become eligible for insurance. In America, you have to buy car insurance. And what's interesting about this 1% is that they're 16 and 17-year-old kids. They've never actually gotten up off the couch to change the channel on the TV. They've never put a key in a car door to unlock it. They've never loaded film into a camera to take a picture. These consumers, if they're under 30 and they're awake, they're online. They're connected. And what they want is speed and convenience, and it's in their muscle memory. You cannot reach this 1% the way you've reached people in the past. So there's one thing that auto insurance companies in the United States have in common. They spend a lot of money on television. The top 5 advertisers in the United States spend $4 billion every year on television. You cannot watch a sporting event in the United States without seeing a commercial from Geico, State Farm, Allstate, Progressive, and every one of them has created a face for the brand. The Gecko, Flo, Mayhem. Some of you may be familiar with this. What's interesting is some of the market is somewhat bifurcated. The companies on the left focus on price. And in fact, all the research would say that's the right thing to do. 70% of consumers prefer the lowest price. The companies on the right have very large broker networks, as I will show you. And they focus on advice. It's very different models. So what's happening? I talked about $4 billion are being spent in television. Geico alone spends $1 billion a year. And that's growing at a compounded annual growth rate of roughly 20%. If you can possibly imagine that, to build a brand. USAA spends $92 million. Look at the difference between these companies. And I'll get back to USAA a little bit later. The important thing to note is that in the United States, there's 2 ways to buy insurance. There's actually 3 ways, but there's about 18,000 agents at State Farm. There's roughly 11,000 agents at Allstate. And then there's none at companies like Geico and Progressive. They have a completely direct model where insurance can be bound online or through a call center. In the last, 10 years, let's say, it's a little less, brokers and agents forces in the United States are declining. And why is that happening? Well, here's where the money is going. You'll notice that exclusive agents, or what we call captive agents in the United States, are declining. So State Farm has captive agents, right? They can only sell State Farm products. The other one that's declining is the national independent agent, which you're probably familiar with. They can sell multiple brands, but they're not regional. They're actually sort of national, right? The fastest growing is direct response. And I talked about the internet and its effect on consumers, speed and convenience. The growth is astounding. The consumer is faster, smarter, and more informed than she has ever been. We live in a world of infinite transparency, where you have all the world's information in the palm of your hand. Imagine how that changes your perception of the world. Consumers don't just want a face or a brand that they can connect with. They want a frictionless experience. So this is the consumer journey in the United States. There's 3 metrics here that pop out at me. One is that nearly 30% of the market never talk to an agent or a broker or a call center. Everything is done direct. Nearly 50% of all quotes generated in the United States for auto insurance, they never talk to an agent or a call center or a broker. And more importantly, only 13% of people never use the internet to make their decision. Everything is fundamentally changed because of the internet, because of the power of the internet. So I'm going to set this up. I talked about Geico. Geico's a very interesting brand. As I said, they spend $1 billion a year on television, but they also have no brokers, and they're the fastest growing auto insurance company in the United States. They do these interesting TV commercials. This one in particular is about Hump Day. I'm not what you guys are thinking. It's actually the middle of the week. Today is Wednesday. Today actually is Hump Day. And consumers talk about it as though it's sort of the backside of the week, right? And they're getting ready for the weekend. And this is the commercial that they air on television.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-woo!
Ronnie, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico? I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day!
Get happy.
Yeah.
Get Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
So as I mentioned, Geico's a direct player, no brokers, $1 billion on their brand, and they're the fastest growing auto insurance company in the United States, and this is how they do it. What's interesting is they have the lowest expense ratio in the industry relative to their peers. And the reason that that happens, as all of you can imagine, is that they don't have to pay commissions to brokers, right? So they take the money that they save and they give it back to the consumer. It's a revolutionary concept. But they're cheaper, right, than everybody else. And the fact of the matter is that has changed the entire landscape. The important thing that companies don't talk about, the dirty secret, all these broker companies that have huge investments in infrastructure and lots of agents all over the country, is that auto insurance is actually the lowest margin business for the agent. They make the least amount of money servicing these policies. In fact, it's bad for them. But the 35% of their book is actually relative to these policies. They have their policies kind of baked in auto because it's the easiest insurance to sell, right? So they need it in order to get people to get to home and to life insurance. And therefore, they keep doing this as the market shrinks around them. So if you look at Geico, this direct model that spends $1 billion on their brand, that's connecting with consumers, speed and convenience through the direct model, their market share is growing at nearly 10% over the last 2 years. That is astounding in auto insurance. In the United States, only 11% of people look for new auto insurance every year. It's actually declined to 7% in 2012. The market is getting smaller and smaller, and they're taking a bigger and bigger share. And where is it coming from? The two at the top, who are broker-led businesses, right? I said 18,000 agents and 11,000, respectively. So everything is changing. All right, gratuitous Brazil shot of a World Cup team. The important thing to know is that 715 million people in 2006 watched the finals of the World Cup. Brazil is the only country to have participated in every World Cup, and it's the winningest team ever. They've won 5 World Cup titles. Fans are very passionate, I understand. It's sort of a hobby, a pastime here in Brazil, from what I understand. So the question is it possible for a company with speed and convenience and a model of advice to create this kind of loyalty? Remember the $98 million company? This is USAA. They have the highest consumer satisfaction rating of any insurance company in the United States. When 2 people who have USAA automotive insurance get together, it's like a magical moment. Seriously, I have USAA. I can tell you it's a very real thing. You meet this person and you ask, how is it possible that you're eligible for USAA? Because only 60 million people in the United States are eligible for this insurance. You have to either have been a veteran of the military or a family member of the veteran in the military. And the amazing thing is, this is the face of their brand. The website. There is no TV, there are no brokers. Everything is done online and through the call center. And people love them. I do want to leave some hope for those of you who have agents and brokers. There are times in people's lives when the internet is never going to be able to be enough for what you need. Something is going to happen, whether it be the birth of a child, or the death of a family member, when you are going to want advice. It's not an either-or proposition for insurance providers. It's not just either direct or brokers. It's both, at different times in people's lives. And the companies that figure this out are going to be big winners. In fact, what's very interesting is that the companies that are direct, like Geico and Progressive in the United States, their biggest problem is churn. They lose their customers at a much higher rate than everybody else because they don't offer home or life insurance. And now they're trying to figure out ways to combat that. So I want to show you something that I held back before, which is there is one agent broker force that's increasing in the United States and taking share, and that's the regional independent agent. And what that means to me is that people want to talk to someone that they know and they trust when they have things in their life that they can't get answers from the internet for. Sadly, I'm from Google, but I can say, can't answer everything. Okay. Does anyone know what this is? Okay. This is now the #1 selling luxury car in America. It's less than 2 years old. It's a Tesla Model S. This car costs $96,000. It outsells the BMW 750i, the Mercedes S-Class, and the Audi A8. This car is a fully electric car. You can only drive it 250 miles before it runs out of power. But it's really fast. It goes like 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. So what this tells me is that Americans believe in speed and convenience, even when convenience doesn't exist. You cannot drive this car across the country. It's impossible. You can't do it. But people will pay $96,000 for the promise of speed and convenience in the future. And what I would ask all of you to walk away with today is to ask yourselves, will you look to the past to define your brand with consumers in the future? Or will you reimagine and redefine what you will do? Thank you.